After seeing that God equips who he calls, understanding that whatever it is he has in store for you on your journey, for us on our journey, whether it be the church, whether it be as an individual, a family, whatever it may be, we need to understand that knowing that God equips us, we need to trust the one who equips, or trust the one who has called us. God knows what he's doing, and we need to trust in his call. We need to trust him with everything that he calls us to. And in Exodus chapter 3 verses 13 to 14, we see that Moses now is just going about routine business, doing his everyday thing, when he had this incredible encounter with God at the burning bush. And we've already looked at that. Sometimes God speaks to us out of the blue, when we least expect it. Sometimes he comes when our minds and our thoughts are on other things, and suddenly he just comes in and he reveals himself to us, or he speaks to us and calls us and tells us what he wants and what's on his heart. And very often he grabs our attention when we're least expecting it. Moses was not expecting a bush to suddenly burst into flame and not burn up. He wasn't expecting the bush to call out his name. He wasn't expecting the bush to take his sandals off because he was standing on holy ground. All this is totally unusual, out of the blue, totally unexpected, and out of the ordinary. Don't be surprised if God speaks to you on your impossible journey out of the blue, and suddenly, when you're doing something totally mundane, gives you the call to do what he's called you to do and be who he wants you to be. If I can use my own personal experience, I'd been seeking God for 2 years, and one day just walking the dog, not thinking about anything else, not thinking about what I'd been seeking God about. I was talking to him about my future, what he had in store for me, what he wanted me to do, what he wanted me to be, and nothing was further from my mind at this moment in time. I was walking our dog in the field, and suddenly God spoke and told me it was time to move on. I was doing a mundane thing. I was walking a dog. I was not in a spiritual atmosphere. I was not in a praise time. I was not in a quiet time. I was not in a study time. I was not in a seeking time. I was doing a normal human thing. And God suddenly spoke into the situation. And in verse 13, Moses tries to put a stumbling block before God. And wow, Moses hadn't thought of this one, had he? Who am I? I can't speak. I haven't the ability to talk in public. You know, God hadn't thought of that indeed. Let's face it. Moses, that's an eye-opener, isn't it? Well, let me tell you something. God knows exactly the excuses we're going to make before we make them. He also knows our inadequacies, and he also knows what we can and cannot do, and he knows how to use what we cannot do and to equip us, as we've already seen. And we need to trust him when he calls us. I think he knows a little bit better than me and you about what we can and we cannot do in his power and his grace and his mercy, don't you? And so Moses tries to make up and tries to put it off and tries to tell God something that God already knew he was going to say anyway. He has all the answers. There's no objection that we can raise to God that he hasn't already thought about and he doesn't have the answer to. Of course, God in his omniscient, all knowledge, divine nature knew that Moses was going to say this, knew that Moses was going to make those excuses, and he had the answers ready for him. There is never a reason or excuse that God hasn't heard before we utter them. He's heard it all. And so for us to come up with something won't be anything new that he hasn't heard before. And in verse 14, to this very tricky question of man's mortal wisdom, and Moses says, well, who will I say has sent me? How can I possibly go to the children of Israel, and who can I tell them has sent me on this journey? Why will they believe me? Why will they listen to me? And God says, I am has sent you. That's enough. Just tell them I am has sent you. Tell them I am has sent me to you. And that's it. In the ancient Hebrew language, there is no past or present or future tense for this statement. And the literal translation is, I shall be that I shall be. Now, some modern liberal scholars have tried to diminish the fact that God was actually called himself I am. And they tried to say, well, God wasn't actually saying that. It's just a name just saying I am sending you, as in an ordinary sentence, like you and I would say. However, the text is very clear. I am has sent you. I am. And he is. Okay, how do we apply that to ourselves today then? We are still sent by the same I am. In John chapter 8 verse 58, Jesus said these words, before Abraham was, I am. And again, cults, liberal theologians will just try and tell us that Jesus was saying, using the term as just, I am doing this or I am doing that. He was not. And they try to diminish the authority and the power of this statement that Jesus is making here. He's not just referring to himself normally, as we would do. If that was the case, he was using very bad grammar, because in the context of the scriptures in John chapter 8 verse 58, you will see that he is referring to himself in the present tense. If Jesus was just using the language normally, he would have said, I was, not I am. Before Abraham was, I was. That would be the grammatical way to say something. But he doesn't. He says, before Abraham was, I am. He's the eternal Saviour of the world. He is before, he is now, he is in the future, he is Alpha and Omega, he is the beginning and the end, he is now. And his eternal and divine nature and existence is declared in those words. I am. Understand, I am has called you. I am sent you. I am has promised to go with you regardless of anybody else's theology, regardless of anybody else trying to explain to you it can't possibly be God, because God wouldn't do that, or God wouldn't call you, God couldn't use you. Don't listen to any of that. If God has called you and God has brought you onto this journey that you are enjoying in his love and his grace, then don't listen to what other people have to say. If you know it's the call of God and you know it's the direction that Jesus has given you, other people cannot interfere with that. They cannot explain away that the Bible actually says that you're on this part of the journey through his provision, his grace and his purpose. It's sufficient to know, just as Moses knew, that I am is sending you. I am has called you. I am is with you on this journey, and he will be with you on this journey right to the end, and that's your answer to every obstacle that people will put in your place. I am has called me, and I am confident in the one who has called me.